Go for it.
Uh,
Obyte Community Radio.
Community
so
radio.
should I?
Okay.
Hello, lovely Obyte people. This is the first episode of Obyte Community Radio. And as it is the first episode, you won't be able to hear me because I forgot to open up my mic on Discord. Now, again, this is the first episode of Obyte Community Radio Show. And since it's the first episode, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And we are happy to take you with us on this bumpy ride that we are having. Either if you're watching on YouTube or if you're with us here directly on Discord of the Obyte community. We are nevertheless, in either way, totally happy to take you with us. The good thing is, if you are watching video, you can see some of our funny faces that we're making throughout the show. To the left, I have put some descriptions up so that you know who's talking. But to the left, that's me. I'm Yeti, guys. I'm part of the presenters team for tonight. To the right, having a subtitle or an uptitle with the man with a kayak because he's from Canada and he owns at least one, maybe even two. So that's the man from Canada, the fishing man from Canada, from Newfoundland and Labrador. Bucky Durdle, he's the other half of the presenters, of the host of the show. And in the middle, we are surrounding him somehow. You can see waving right now Casper, that's the user acquisition manager of Obyte, and the first guest that we're having today in the show. So that's what this show is about. We are going to talk about Obyte. We are going to talk about all the fancy things that are currently happening in that great community. And we want to reach out a bit more to all the community that is around Obyte to be able to directly connect. And therefore, we have as a first guest the user acquisition manager. By the way, a funny title, Casper. How did you come to that? Is this something out of your own mind, or has this been enforced on you?
Actually, no. It was forced on me. I participated in the community for quite a while, and primarily doing translations using the Steam community called DaVinci, or at the time it was called Utopian. So I kind of managed all the translation work. We both translated the wallet and the website and even some of the chatbots. So it's I then moved on and decided this is actually quite an amazing project. So I wanted to get more involved, and I did so. And finally ended up asking if it would be fine if I joined the core team of Obyte. And luckily, there was just an opening, and they asked, okay, then what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to do a lot of things. I love projects, to manage different kind of projects, to explore these different possibilities there is with this platform, and generally just provide help and assistance wherever needed. So I think I always most of the people here on Discord and Telegram, they know me. I spend quite a lot of time. I'm basically just away when I'm sleeping. So I guess that's how it all started, and I had to be called something, and it was user acquisition manager, but it could equally well be community manager, management, whatever. So I just enjoy my time, and really got to love all the people here, and regularly get excited about new ideas popping up, and yeah, just people having a great time. Of course, also trying to explain some of the more technical details of the platform to newcomers, and a lot of other things.
If you have been watching, this is a friendly reminder to all our YouTube audience. If you have been watching this, you have seen not our funny faces, but you have seen like a teaser of how this show is going to look like. Now, since I pushed the right button, you can see
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. So basically, I'm going to share a bit of our evening that we had just recently had. Casper, Andrew, and me. We have been working heavily in the background for things that we thought we totally have under control, but it seemed
It is under control. It's perfectly under control. I have a theory, you see, Jan. I have a theory. You see, we do a show and we'll have catastrophic technical challenges 40 minutes before the show. But 4 minutes before the show, they always get resolved. So I have a proposal, Jan. From now on, whenever we do a show, we should, if we have any technical problems, let's forget about it. Let's just leave them.
yeah,
Because
there's
4 minutes before, 4 minutes before curtain time, they will resolve themselves.
Okay. So,
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm juggling around with some problems in the background that still haven't solved themselves by magic. So if you're looking at the YouTube stream, I do want to include also the chat that we are having on Discord, the quite lively chat. So this is something that I want to get in there as well. I'm currently working on it, and it will work in just a second, or maybe 2 seconds. But you know, things don't magically solve themselves normally, Bucky. Maybe
no,
they
well, you know, I don't know. You know, I find that sometimes just, you know, if you just maybe you wish upon a star, maybe
that's a nice song, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I was when I was listening to, because I was also out running around, and I can see the delay on some of the video of me like turned around looking at another screen. In the preview, but I was going to say, while I was listening to Casper, and he said his user acquisition. Now, if you were
it has a quite negative sound to it.
Well,
acquisition.
I was
I'm
thinking
going to
if
come
you were,
and grab.
Yeah, I was thinking if you were if you were from another planet and you were visiting Earth, user acquisition would probably be abduction.
Exactly.
So, alien abduction.
Oh, really? But you don't look that harsh to me.
And that's in no way what I do for Obyte.
No, okay.
I help out with the projects. If opportunities arise, then I help to pinpoint. It could be various use cases. Help to suggest using some of the features that Obyte has to offer. Obyte is such a huge toolbox basically. I love to compare it to a box of Legos, because there's so many blocks that you can put together in so many different ways,
Mhm.
that I rarely come across a problem or a business process where I wouldn't be able to introduce Obyte. So it's actually quite interesting to be able to spot these potentials and suggest solutions. Some of the others I've talked to are like, okay, you can do this with our platform, or you can do that with this platform. But with Obyte, I kind of never ran into a use case we didn't quite solve. So it's quite interesting, and the user acquisition part of the title should be taken with a grain of salt. Really, it's I think it's the word acquisition, someone coming and taking over someone else. It's basically just my most important task to be able to identify potential and develop that potential. So I do talk to quite a few different both businesses. I send a lot of emails, but things just doesn't move as fast in the real world as it does in the crypto world. So often I could start a dialogue over email, or correspondence over email, and it'll take 2 weeks before I get a reply, and kind of forgot who it was replying to me, so I have to go back and check who were they exactly and what did they want. So it's quite funny that that the pace of the crypto world is so amazingly fast compared to the outside world. Nothing happens really fast in the outside world.
Well,
Um,
Casper, if
mhm,
I keep going back to where we are in history, and I still think that we are at the beginning of the industrial revolution, and somebody has just invented the printing press. I mean, I think that's where we are. And really, you think about this for a second. If you said, if you just invented the printing press, and everybody around the world who needed a printing press found out about it, and they said, wow, there's this thing that prints. I've been scribbling away on paper by hand for, like, years. I need one of those things. You're going to get called by so many people. You're going to be contacted, and it's going to be
mhm,
all this buzz around the world about, I got to get my hands on one of these printing presses.
exactly.
Well, notice this, it's like we're talking about here. The tools that we have here,
Hmm.
some of the tools are unique. They are unique. They have Some tools have never seen the light of day before.
Hmm.
So people are, I can see where the excitement would come from.
Yeah.
And I can also see where it would be hard for you to keep track of everybody who wants your printing press.
Hmm.
I want to use that thing. So,
Yeah, but there's actually two sides to it, because 95% of everyone interested in crypto platforms is interested in them, mainly due to the currencies, the digital currencies that it makes possible, and they kind of fail to see a lot of the other potential this technology holds. Yes, the transfer of value, digital value, is a possibility that became possible with the distributed ledgers. But there's a vast number of other opportunities that suddenly becomes possible. You start to see these decentralized workplaces where you could have a board of directors, basically working in different parts of the world and voting with through a distributed ledger, fully transparent, fully open, and everyone would be able to see. And you have this the fact that you have math and a protocol enforcing rules. That's such a huge progress compared to governments or courts or anything else trying to govern and enforce different rules. Once the math is universal, and the math will eventually force everyone to do things the same way. And so it's such an amazing tool, really, that is currently being used for the 2% of its full potential. Um, Luckily, those 2% creates a lot of awareness. You see all these millionaires going around Lamborghinis. Well, not so much anymore, but at least back in 2017, 18, we saw a lot of people become really, really wealthy, and the desire to become wealthy very fast obviously attracted a lot of attention. And I think you can't really do without that. It's required to have a main driver of any new technology. So it's the value or the dream of becoming economically independent, I think, is what drives a lot of people to become aware of distributed ledgers initially. And then I found this out myself. The actual value stuff, the cryptocurrencies, isn't actually what I find all important to this. A lot of the use cases are so amazingly interesting that I just love being part of this project and being able
Mhm.
to explore a lot of these new potentials.
Sure. Okay.
Talking about use cases and talking
Hmm.
about Obyte in specifics,
Mhm.
because for sure we are talking about the crypto space in general as well. So
Hmm.
you cannot just talk about Obyte without or with neglecting all the surroundings that we are in the end living in. But
Hmm.
in the end, this is we are focusing on Obyte, which is having quite some special or some special abilities.
Hmm.
And I heard, and I just heard, because I wanted you to explain a bit, that you have set up many bounties and that you have had a program running with a lot of developers lately
Exactly.
to push things forward. And what exactly did this get to you, or what is the benefit that we all have from it?
Yeah, we just a couple of weeks back we released so-called autonomous agents. So far only on testnet, and it's a really new way to use the Obyte ledger. Everyone has to remember that everything is about transactions, how to transact in predictable or fair ways, and the autonomous agents opens up a huge new potential for new ways of transacting between parties, or even between items, or it could be yeah, electric vehicles, smart buildings, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that can transact with each other, and these autonomous agents now creates a fully new potential in that you can have a lot of different people interacting with the ledger by simply triggering this autonomous agent, and perhaps it would be in place to sort of explain the autonomous agents. It's the most easy explanation would be to compare it to a vending machine, where you go up and you can see, oh, there's a lot of soft drinks. I'm so thirsty. You put in a coin, and that's the triggering action. As soon as your coin goes into the machine, it will release a soft drink, and you can get that. And you kind of knew that in advance. But what if someone tampered with the machine? They put something, a piece of tape or something, in the coin slot. You would simply lose that coin, and that's because you don't have any transparency about what goes on inside the machine. You don't know in advance, will I actually get my soft drink? Sometimes those things get stuck as well. So and you feel terribly cheating.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
you get angry and you start kicking the
Oh yeah,
machine.
if you're
That's that.
thirsty, then you're just shaking the machine. Either it breaks or it gives you the drink. So
Exactly, and with autonomous agents, there's no such risk at all, because you can actually see in advance how the program, it's a piece of code being executed that actually processes your transaction and provides a result. And before you do that, before you trigger the autonomous agent, you're actually able to see how will this affect the execution of this program, and you can see the end result. And nothing can change that result, and that's an entirely new possibility, and really interesting, because if you look at society in general and in the real world in general, I don't believe you can find anything like that anywhere else. It's perhaps in the world of physics. You know that when you take one atom and split it, you get stuff.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not a
yeah,
physicist,
yeah.
but
I had
and
it
and
as
and
a minor.
and even there, you still see scientists sometimes get surprised. But this potential is actually quite new, and
Sure.
like anything new, it has to be explored, and we of course also needed to test this, because it's quite a massive improvement of the core protocol of Obyte. So in order to not introduce any problems or cause any flaws, this was released on the testnet, and
For
to
sure.
to to create an incentive for people to try it out and to test it and help us find bugs, uh, and also very important to suggest improvements. We launched this developer contest that is currently running in the second round now. We already completed the first round, and we're going to run this all the way until I think it's mid-October, and every 2 weeks we'll be celebrating the best suggestions, the best autonomous agents
That's
put
very
up on the test network.
That's very cool. I'd like to talk more about that shortly, if you don't mind.
Hmm.
That's really cool. Um, Before we go any further,
Hmm.
um, we have quite a few listeners on YouTube,
Yeah.
and we have our wonderful audience in Discord. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen watching the show, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you coming out. Some people that are watching, maybe they don't know, like, what is Obyte? What is it? So, like, if you had the elevator
The
description, you know what I'm
elevator
talking about?
The
pitch.
You know what
elevator
I'm talking
pitch.
about? Do
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
go
have
for
the
it.
elevator? Yeah, the elevator description of what is Obyte? Could you
Actually,
just
I have quite a few elevator pitches, and I tend to grab into the bag and reach for that one that fits the
fits the height
situation.
of the building?
So
If
so
you got like 70 floors, it's one pitch. If you got 10 floors, it's another pitch.
yeah, and it's and the reason I usually have so many different ways to explain what exactly Obyte is. Of course, I explain that it's a distributed ledger. People usually say, "Huh?" And then I say, a blockchain, but not a blockchain. And then they look even more confused, and then I address a certain need that they have. I went to Copenhagen FinTech Week a couple of months ago, and talked to quite a few people, and I actually realized that the way I presented the Obyte platform was different with every person I talked to. So depending on whether I was talking to someone having invented the next new identity management platform, or someone providing account to account transfers cross border with instant clearing, I actually ended up pitching Obyte in different ways. So the short pitch of Obyte would definitely be that it's a huge box of Lego that allows you to build whatever you need, and you could for most use cases, you could, as long as you have an element of trust that you need to eliminate, um, then you could actually find some way to solve it using the Obyte platform. So I think it's a bit difficult to provide an overall elevator pitch, really. But I think it's as close as I get
It's good.
to that.
That's good. That's good
Mm.
stuff. The
I can,
a
I can
min
I can add that some of the
Yep.
topics that often turns out to be highly relevant are the self-sovereign identity management and the possibility to actually do a KYC check, and another quite overseen part of or feature of the Obyte platform is actually the attesters, allowing, let's say, a company that wants 5 of their customers to interact, and then they would create an attester and attest those 5 companies and their wallet addresses, so they would know that this is actually the correct wallet interacting with us. So attesters is a great way to sort of create actually a permissioned ledger on top of on top of an open ledger. And those are some of the things that people tend to find quite interesting out in the real world.
Can I go back a bit?
Hmm.
So I'm going to rewind now, just a bit, because we talked about crypto space and how people, or I think you mentioned it, Casper, about people getting rich quite fast. Well, it's not exactly what I'm hinting at now, but I think that all the things that you have been explaining about the developer contests. So you're not pushing out millions of dollars, but the developers that are selected, they do get some bounties, as far as I understood.
Definitely, and we do this this distribution of bytes to we have a grant program as well where you can apply for funding to build a project if you have a use case. And of course it can't be okay, I'm going to build this and I'm going to be super rich, but it has to have some kind of interesting potential, and be more than just a one-off. Yeah, now we build the project, bye bye again. It has to have a long-term view as well, and there's actually quite a few grants currently running. There's one to create a chat app with built-in value transfer. And compared to the current Obyte wallet, which actually does have built-in chat, encrypted end-to-end chat, in contrary to that, the new chat app will be a lot simpler, really, and easier to use. The, the thing with Obyte is that because of the vast amount of features it has so far, the wallet gets kind of confusing. And if you're a new user not used to distributed ledgers at all, then it will seem kind of confusing. So I think it's a really interesting project, and I'm really looking forward to it. And the grant program is open to everyone, and I would highly suggest that people just give it a shot. It's not like you have to write a full thesis. You can actually do with 3 or 4 pages on a Google Docs. So I think it's quite interesting to see some of these projects kicking off now. We have a Quasar framework being built as well, and one, yeah, I have one myself, actually, a charity platform currently running and being improved on constantly. So there's a lot of interesting projects going on, and the distribution of bytes, I think it's definitely worth it. It's super interesting projects, and the bytes are well spent, actually. These people add to the overall value of the Obyte ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. And not only that, because they add value for sure, but they add new solutions as well, and
Hmm.
new ideas and new ways of doing things, which is great because sometimes developers can be quite, going one way and having people thinking about the same things or making additions always is totally fruitful. It's a blessing if people think about your code. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because it can get you faster to good ideas or to even ideas that you might have not had yourself if the people did not interact with your code, interact with your ideas, and bounce it around sometime, maybe even with the guys directly, so that it gets refined and better. This is,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
as far as I understood, this is really, at least it works very well for me in my
Hmm.
own developments that I'm doing. So because normally I'm good at ideas, but
Hmm.
there's always something missing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And I actually have that as well. I used to be a developer
oh,
like
really?
10 years ago, but I kind of took a management direction instead, and that's what I do at work. I have a normal full-time work besides my work for Obyte, and I often have these new ideas and I'm not able to realize them myself. So I need help from others as well. So even if you just have an idea, it's actually still possible to realize it. You just need to hook up with people, start interacting, pitch the idea to people, or perhaps even write a grant proposal. You can get funding for finding developers. It's always a bit easier if you have a bit of funding to offer
yeah, for sure.
those who are going to help you.
For
And
sure.
do you have a link we can share with our Discord viewers, and I can put it in the YouTube channel as well for that for any of this information on funding, possible grants, how to apply, where to apply. Um,
Absolutely. Just a second, I'll find
yeah,
it here.
and while you're doing that,
Hmm.
this is actually the second time today that I've heard what you just said about about having great ideas, but not having all of the skills to be able to put together like a great idea, because I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody has all the
Hmm.
skills. So I was
Hmm.
speaking to a guy this morning, and he's real smart guy, and really really has great stuff that he'd love to do. And he's saying, I think I need to learn how to program. And I'm saying, okay, but why? And he said, well, because I know what I want, but like I'm gonna have to get somebody to do that, and but there's no way to
Yeah,
do it all, because then okay, well, now I need to market it. Okay, so now do you have to learn everything there is to know about marketing? Then you
exactly.
have, it's like, oh my. But yeah, but it's great if you have the tools and you have the team. And I think that over in this whole sector, this whole blockchain sector, it's ripe for progressive entrepreneurs
Exactly.
to take all these great new tools and to move with them. I
Yeah,
think we're
and
going
I
to see
think
some really interesting business models come up soon.
yeah, and you kind of you see all these. There's a lot of conferences or hackathons where you put all of these super talented people together. You have developers, you have
Mm-hmm.
product designers, you have yeah, marketers, and you put all of these people together and you give them a weekend and say come up with a great idea, and they actually managed to build quite amazing products in such short time. It's quite interesting to witness, and I've been to a few myself. I always and I go to these kind of events, and I have, oh, I want this idea, and I
Yeah.
always end up building something else with with someone else.
And
So
yeah, and is the end result better than the idea that you may have had walking in the door?
always
Yeah.
always better, and that's what I think is really important, that then even though you have an initial idea based on it could be technology, what is possible, what is possible on the Obyte platform, and you get an idea, but you might overlook the user experience or the design or the marketing of your product. And I think it's super relevant and super important to bring together people who are experts at different areas,
Mhm.
to have them, because as the guy with the idea, you have to explain it in a way that someone who don't know what the idea is will understand it, and be able to catch on to it and say, oh, we need to market it this way, and we need
Mhm.
to build it this way, and oh, you might run into a problem doing this, so we can do that instead, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. The dialogue and yeah, ping ponging ideas always makes it better.
Yeah,
Um,
and then just a little point on that as well.
mhm.
We have, as I said earlier, we have a great audience here today. We have quite a few people in YouTube watching this live, and hello YouTube, it's great to be with you on YouTube, and on Discord as well. Um, some people that are there, they still they've got the elevator pitch about
Mhm.
what's going on, and we're
Mhm.
hearing you talk about hackathons and things like that. If
Mhm.
anybody is out there and they're unsure about something that we're talking about here today, please don't hesitate to just
Yeah,
say,
fire
"Hey,
away.
hey, what's a hackathon? Hey, what's Obyte? What is this? You know,
Yeah, what are you
don't
all
don't be
talking about? You.
yeah, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? How do I get Jan's autograph? If you got a question, you put it up there. So if there's anything anybody wants to know, feel free to ask. And anybody has a question, feel free to ask a question as well about anything that we're talking about here or we're not talking about. I
Mhm.
mean, we don't ask me about vegetables because I'm not very good at growing anything. Don't ask, but we can ask about this stuff, blockchain.
Yes,
Oh, but yeah.
definitely.
So that's very cool. Now, you're saying like I've never been to a hackathon because I live in Newfoundland, so it's a very rural place. Still no sound from me in Discord. Holy
No, no sound from you in Discord. I'm just saying, because they miss all these great tips
wow!
that you just taught
I
about
don't
Canada
know.
and
I don't
where
know
to fish
why.
and where you can go with your boat
Where to? Yes,
kayaking.
yeah.
Yeah, they
I
missed all the
don't
good
know.
stuff.
Okay, I'll have a look at it. I think I may have an idea,
Yeah,
but
most likely you
but
haven't selected the right
yeah,
sound
it's probably input.
input
No, yeah, no.
thingy.
I know what's wrong.
Yeah, then fix
I
it,
know
my
what's
dear.
wrong.
Fix it. Therefore,
Check one, two.
oh
Check
yes,
one,
oh yes,
two.
oh yes, I can see your
People,
name go white, and that's a very
yes.
good thing in Discord
Okay,
because
so the first thing I'd like to do here, now that I have found my voice, la, 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 now that I've found my voice, I would like to apologize to everybody who's sitting in Discord, wondering why there are these big pieces of silence. Well, it's because I had I had push to talk on. Now
Ah,
in YouTube we're streaming out and we're in Google and we're streaming out and all that was fine and dandy, but in here in Discord I had push to talk pushed,
ah.
or I should say mash to talk. And so I didn't have it. So but if I could just go back here in Newfoundland where I live, it's very rural. So I've never been to a hackathon. But it's really cool. Now I've like done virtually. I've people have I've been watched camera action and all that. Very cool stuff.
Mhm.
Now I want to ask you about something that's gone. It's not a hackathon, but it's kind of it's sort of similar in a way. Well, not really, but anyway, I want to bring it up anyway. It is there was I was reading about a story about a young student from Japan who
Mhm.
was doing some learning, some marathon learning. That's why it came to my mind with hackathon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was actually an internship at a company, I believe, in Estonia, where we had one of our developers, Tamo, helping out, and they created an entire 4-day crash course. It turned out when the developer arrived, he had no experience with Node.js whatsoever. So not only did he have to learn an entirely new language, he also had to learn everything there was to learn about cryptocurrencies, distributed ledgers, and and uh, and write his code in a language he wasn't used to. So it's really an amazing achievement, and I would love to have been a fly on the wall, watching him struggle throughout the weeks. I don't know actually exactly what he was producing, but we have Tamo in the Discord channel as well. And I'm sure he can provide some additional info if people are interested. Um, at least it was a sort of a 4-day crash course,
Yeah.
and we are working to somehow refine that, and
Hmm.
to see if we can somehow build an event around that material as well, so we can invite people to actually come and experience this themselves and see how much is actually possible to create in only 4 days.
Yeah.
I think it's the most developers will be surprised, and at least that's what I've heard from some of those working on the autonomous agent developer contest, that it's actually quite amazing what's possible in rather short amount of time. Oh yeah, there's
Very.
the link.
There you go.
Thanks, Samo.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And the um, I come from an education background, so I know that there are some organizations that have been very aggressive in creating educational packages or educational programming that young people, maybe high school students or younger,
Hmm.
can interact with their tools. Again, an example, because I come from a music background, is
Hmm.
Ableton Live. Ableton
Exactly.
Live has a very aggressive education program.
Hmm.
So because of that, there are so many young people using Ableton Live. It's crazy because
Yeah,
all the teacher would need to do is to take the program and insert. And then there are
exactly.
other ones as well. Other, and we're seeing Raspberry Pi programs coming up now that have kids working,
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah. and
lots of.
and and it's quite a brilliant idea, and particularly schools, high schools, universities, they are being swamped with ideas and suggestions by crypto projects these
Mhm.
days, and actually there's quite a few catching on, not necessarily on one specific project, but mainly on the technology itself. You have actually we right now there's an ongoing blockchain summer school going on at the IT University here in Copenhagen. I live in
Okay.
Denmark, in Copenhagen, and they have 1 week crash course, and they are taught everything there is to know about how blockchains work, how distributed ledgers, DAX work, how how consensus algorithms, how many different ways there are to achieve consensus, solve double spending, prevent spam. There's a lot of different ways. If you look at it, we have more than 2,500 different projects, and I'm quite sure that at least half of them believe they introduced a brand new way to solve all these problems, and you definitely wouldn't. They all introduced their particular project to solve a problem they saw in Bitcoin, and I think it's quite funny actually that we're now 10 years down the road. We have 2,499 other projects than Bitcoin, and still people compare it to Bitcoin. You have second, third, fourth, fifth generation
Yeah.
projects, and still people tend to compare. And yes, of course, the effectiveness of Bitcoin was surpassed long ago. You have all these huge transaction per seconds in at least claims on other projects. So you have all these different kind of flavors in distributed ledger projects, and still people tend to say, "Oh, we are this much better than Bitcoin." Yeah, we all are, and
Yeah,
it's
but that's not really, that's not really what's driving the market, obviously.
no,
Because I know that
definitely not.
most of the new generation blockchains are much more versatile, flexible. You
Absolutely.
can put, I don't know how many adjectives now there as
Mm.
Bitcoin. but still, from a market value point of view,
Hmm.
the Bitcoin is totally unrivaled. And this brings
Exactly.
me to a question that Chenevo, I don't know, Chenevo, I don't know how to
Yeah.
pronounce that name,
Yeah.
but
I know
has
who it
just
is. Yeah.
has just asked in the Discord chat,
Yeah.
and he asked or she asked why Obyte price is falling every day and what mechanics should we apply as a developer to keep it maintain the price.
Yeah.
That's not an easy
And
question, by the way.
yeah, yeah, and it's the reason it keeps falling is because people keep selling. It's quite simple, really. But
Yeah, that's good.
it's
That's a good explanation. I like that.
if you look back at how Obyte has distributed all funds for free, there was no ICO. There's no funds to buy back any tokens, and if you look at that and see a project where like 3/4 of the total supply are now in circulation, or is now in circulation, and still it maintains its value. I think it proves quite significantly that this project is definitely here to stay, and that it's not just about a digital currency, because you have like 1,500 other projects that are just digital currencies. I think you have to look at the project in a more in a wider perspective as well, as simply a tool. Rather than a currency. And if you focus solely on the currency, then Obyte might not be the best project for you. And quite honestly, there's definitely other projects that would, as a quick transaction, peer-to-peer transaction, would work a lot better because they have one sole objective, and that is to be a digital currency. So what Obyte has to offer is unique in the way that it allows for a lot more complex use cases, you could say. And I think one of the things that really strikes me about Obyte is I go to a lot of conferences and watch a lot of YouTube videos, like I guess a lot of other people does as well, and I all see these projects basically building castles in the air. They make a lot of great bold promises, and most of them are actually able to realize those promises. But what I find is that none of those projects actually manage to pave the road to any of those castles. So you
Yeah.
have all of these amazing castles, and this is going to be the future. Yeah, but they tend to forget, how are we going to move from where we are now and into that amazing future? And that's where I believe Obyte is quite unique, in that we attempt to bridge that gap. Uh, we have an amazing founder with a really long term view on things, and he sorts of envisioned the future, and then he started building the bridge to it, instead of building the future. And I believe that a lot of these things that we see, we can't just disconnect from the banks. We need to interact with banks, because all of us, I guess most of us, we get paid in fiat currencies, so we need a way to exchange those currencies into a digital currency that we can do all these amazing things with. But we can't do without the fiat on ramps and off ramps, and we won't be able to for a long time still to come. So by providing all these tools to bridge the gap between the time we're living in and the reality that we're living in right now, and to that amazing future, and I'm absolutely certain it will come eventually, but I believe the projects that will be most successful are the ones paving the road, and helping paving the road to that future, really.
I totally agree. So right now, banks do have their value, and it's not
Mhm.
it's not working without them. By the way, I'm getting paid by one, but don't tell. Uh,
Yes.
uh,
I love the way, and for those people who don't know Jan, he works in a bank. He
yes,
works in a bank.
totally sorry
And,
for
and
that.
it's funny. Every now and then he says banks are banks bad. Don't tell him
Yes.
I said that. Don't
No,
tell him I said that.
but I'm on video, so most likely I'm going to make sure that my bosses don't see that. So
That's right.
no, for right now, it's not working without banks. But I totally see the future. And but there has to be steps to it. It's not coming just live from today to tomorrow. So talking about the future is a good idea, and having ideas for the future and having everything is a good idea. But you need to guide the people into the future. You need to make one step after the other. There was a topic idea
Hmm.
from Tomo, and he said,
Mhm.
"Let Punctured explain." Punctured, by the way, is that man that is in the middle between us. If you are watching the video, he's in the middle. He's waving
He-
right now.
He's
Yeah.
the rose between two thorns.
Yes. Thank you, Bucky, for
Really,
this
really kind of
quite literatic. You're the literature guy. I should change your subtitle.
Yes, there you go.
But yeah, let Punctured explain what witnesses do and don't. Most people forget that Obyte is not a Bitcoin fork. Since we have just talked about that's true. Since we have just talked about Bitcoin a bit, yeah, let's make it clear, Punctured. So that's
I'll
your
try.
turn.
I'll try and keep it short.
Okay.
Well, the witnesses is probably the most misunderstood element of the Obyte network. Really, people tend to look at the word witnesses and think, oh, they are the ones who have to validate my transactions, and that's actually not really the case. They are they are full nodes that allows the network to progress. You could say. So whenever I make a transaction, I don't need a witness to validate that transaction. It cannot be censored or changed or deleted by a witness. I simply just add my transaction to the DAG, the distributed ledger. Um, and why we are not a Bitcoin fork, we're not a blockchain. We are based on directed acyclic graph. But once I posted my transaction, uh, the way that, let's say I posted another transaction in another position in the DAG. If people are not familiar with the DAG, it's basically just a tree structure. And if I were to post a transaction another place in that tree that used the same inputs, that would mean that I was trying to create a double spend. Uh, the only way for the full nodes on the network, and anyone can run full nodes, the only way for them to be able to sort which of these two transactions is the one that we are going to allow is by establishing a perfect order. And it basically means arranging all transactions on the entire Obyte DAC in a perfect order, which transaction came before another one. And in order to be able to do that, they need to some sort of guidance. I usually refer to witnesses transactions as buoys in a large ocean. So by positioning my transaction in in relation to a transaction made by one of the witnesses, then I am able to see which transaction was actually before anyone else. If I move the witness transactions, I won't be able to establish the perfect order of transactions. But I'm not. It's not like anyone will be able to change this transaction or prevent me from posting it into the DAG. It wouldn't become stable because witness transactions serve another function as well. They post their transactions at a regular pace, and as soon as at least half of the 12 witnesses have directly or indirectly referenced a transaction that references mine, so on, then it becomes stable. So they they basically just sit there on the network and post transactions at a regular interval, and that's all they do. And I think this is most likely the most misunderstood element of the Obyte network, and I totally understand why it is so, because it's super hard to explain, and it's I think I read the white paper like 4 or 5 times, and still it's like, oh, it's quite intelligent,
Yeah.
super brilliant. And the first year I kept finding new stuff that I didn't actually either understand, or that I hadn't realized was made in such a way, entirely on purpose. And it's quite amazing, really. So you have this where you have block producers in blockchains being able to select which transactions do I want to put in this block. Let's say I want to put my transaction into the next block, and that transaction is that I'm going to buy a boat, and then someone else sees that I'm going to buy a boat, and I'm the block producer. Let's say I was lucky enough to be allowed to produce the next block, and I find this transaction where Casper wants to buy a boat. I just pick that and remove it, and then I replace it with my own transaction saying I'm going to buy a boat, and I'm going to buy exactly the boat that Casper wants. And since I'm producing the block, I can decide which of these two transactions will go into the block, and it's being censored in a way, because what will happen next is that Casper still wants a boat, and I'll still have the transaction saying I want that boat, but now there's a different owner of that boat, uh, particularly the block producer, and he might be interested in asking a different price for that boat. So by having just the ability to choose which transactions are allowed into the network actually gives you a huge advantage, and that's where I believe Obyte is really unique, because it's fully open. Anyone are allowed to transact, to post their transactions into the network, and they cannot be changed. They cannot be reordered in any way, and that's really what sets Obyte apart from 99% of the other blockchains and DAGs out there.
Yeah, that's really sounding good, and I like the thought of the this this new kind of thought of transparency behind it, because
Hmm.
that's still going down that road, having full
Absolutely.
transparency, having yeah, not changeability, so having
Hmm.
it fixed and transparently fixed, so not just for banks to see in their own books, but having it open. Everybody can see, everybody can audit, everybody can know what is happening.
Hmm.
So that's the genuinely new thought that came along with that blockchain idea, which is making.
Except actually that Obyte has quite a brilliant privacy feature as well.
Huh?
There's
I just
a
wanted to hint
native
at that, but okay, you do it by yourself.
there's a native token called black bytes, and they aren't transactions of black bytes aren't actually visible on the blockchain or the distributed ledger. So you can see that there are some spent proofs being posted, but you have no idea what coin is being transacted, who is sending it, who is receiving it, or the amount of it. So it's quite private compared to some of the other that claims to be private.
Yeah, I
Um,
have written some articles about private coins back in the
mhm,
day, so I'm quite yeah, I know that Obyte is quite intransparent, and that's
mhm.
quite good because that's what you wanted to have in a private coin. But first was the idea of transparency, and later came the idea, okay, cool, now we are fully transparent, but what if I don't want that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and Obyte actually offers both.
Yeah.
So you can have the best of both worlds.
We had some other questions in our Discord chat here as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where to start? Where to start? Oh, first of all, we had some. We had who is? I'm going to say who is
Terrence Lee.
Terrence Lee.
Yeah.
Asked if we can take guests on the show. I think that I think we'll be able to do that in the future, but we're
Mhm.
we're held together with duct tape today,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Yes.
maybe not a good idea today. But now we did have some other questions. How to stay relevant? Yeah. So, P Ming
Miklos.
Miklos. Yeah.
P
So
Miklos.
yeah. So
You
that
should
so he
always have
said.
Casper on the show because you cannot read.
I
So
can't read. Yeah. And not only that, like, okay, I can't read, but I'm not wearing my glasses
yeah,
either.
but then
So,
And
wear
I,
them.
and
oh,
I know
No.
all the people on the community basically.
yeah, there you go.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Uh,
the question, I'll read it for the people who are on YouTube
mhm.
and can't hear it, can't see it themselves. Um, so maybe the question is how to stay relevant in the crypto space despite the low market cap. The
Mhm.
problem with low price is it results in low market cap and people don't seem to take projects not in top 10 seriously.
Uh,
Any thoughts on that? Any quick thoughts?
Absolutely. We need to widen our perspective on people. People don't seem to take projects not in top 10 seriously, and I highly disagree. If you are to buy, let's say, a new laptop, where do you go and buy it? At the ones providing the best laptop, or do you only buy Dell or IBM computers? I mean, you have to widen the perspective when you talk to companies, or people to whom this platform could be relevant. Uh, you don't I don't go over introduce and say, hi, I'm Casper, I'm representing coin number 176 on the coin market cap. uh, can we talk about this nice feature? No. And what I find quite interesting is that people are completely unaware of which projects are large. So you have this almost parallel world of people involved in crypto, being very aware and very focused on position on coin market cap, the volatility of the coin, the volumes, and stuff like that. And it's then you have the real world outside. They really don't care if you have this brilliant product that they need. They're going to use it. They don't care if it's in position 1, 2, 10, 100, 200, or even 1,000 on coin market cap. So it's something completely different that is relevant to them than to people in that are mainly looking at the currency of these projects.
Yeah,
So I think.
I totally I am doing I'm dealing in crypto space for quite some time now.
Mhm,
We met Casper even
mhm,
before doing this show. We met well, not personally, sadly,
mhm.
but we met here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I totally think, and I definitely think, that the market value is not everything, because what we just said 10 minutes ago is that most of the projects that we have been talking about, and Obyte in specific, has so many more flexibility than Bitcoin, has so many more options to build cool stuff, has so many more, I don't know, everything
Mhm,
basically than Bitcoin, but is inferior by large, and by very large,
mhm.
to the market value. So I think we should all get away from well, coin market cap is cool for some reasons. It's not
Yeah, we
cool for having or for seeing the value of a project, because
absolutely.
this is not something that you can get out of coin market cap.
Exactly. But I think it's important to stress the fact that it's as a rather important what's it called, leverage. It's what brings attention to a project initially.
Sure.
So you can't really just completely ignore that the currency aspects, and the overall value of the project. But I believe what would create value, that is actually what people are doing right now. They're participating, they are ping ponging ideas, they are building autonomous agents, they are listening to radio shows, and I think being part of this community, it's a huge creative process, really. And I think the best way to keep a project relevant is to keep talking about it, keep interacting with it, and
Yeah, keep pushing it
simply
forward. Yeah.
keep talking to others about it as well, and particularly people outside of the usual crypto world. They will find these things incredibly amazing once you start talking to them. um,
Yeah,
so, oh,
totally
that's
true.
really possible. um, I even try. I had to explain the Polo Polo, the charity project that I'm building. I tried to explain it to my parents, and they aren't exactly digitally born, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Um,
imagine.
and they were like, "Oh, that's so clever, but can't you just cheat it?" And I said, "Of course you can cheat. You can cheat anywhere in life. It's not the perfect solution to the entire universe, but it just aims at doing things just a tiny bit better than the usual things, or the usual charity organizations does. So I think it's they kind of understand that this is really special. Of course, I'm old enough to have been around when the internet was invented. Um, I had
Ah,
to
well,
explain how
well, you're super young
why I
still.
was I had to explain why I was hogging the phone line for
Oh yeah,
for
oh yeah,
hours every night trying to dial up to a university on a
yeah. I know that
12
box.
1200
And
bits per second modem.
here I thought I was the only one.
No, no,
Oh
no,
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 you're
no.
not.
Yeah, the and I
Absolutely
have
not.
to say, I have to say that that modem connection sound,
Oh yeah,
um,
I miss it.
Brilliant. Yeah.
brings back memories.
Oh yeah, it
Hmm.
does. It does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talk about something else. Else I get sentimental.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I'd like to, I had in my notes here. I wanted to ask you about your the Polo Polo project that you've got. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, pretend I'm your parents, and
Yeah, yeah.
explain to
You're definitely not old enough to be that.
me.
He has gray hair. He has gray hair.
I
Take a
do have
close
some
look.
gray, yeah.
But I'll try to explain it really short. I'll provide some links. We do have some really cool explainer videos actually. But the overall goal of the project is to allow donors to utilize cryptocurrency platforms in a way that doesn't force the receiver of a donation to also struggle with technology and banks and converting, off ramping, stuff like that. I think since one of the biggest barriers right now are the off and on ramps for the digital currencies, I saw a potential in somehow limiting the need for that in charity use cases, in that a donor would be able to make a donation and actually pay for a product, a physical product, in an entirely other part of the world, and the actual receiver, the person in need, wouldn't would, wouldn't have to do anything but go and pick up that product. And of course, the element of trust is required here. It's a three-party transaction, really, where the donor donates funds to the producer of the product, but the producer is then certain then that he'll get the money. Um, but the payment is conditioned by the fact that the receiver of the physical product will actually confirm that he received the product. So, oh, actually, I'm told that it's not called a receiver. That's something from American football. It's called a recipient.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
guess.
true. But it
I
sounded
guess.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. But as soon as the recipient confirms that he received the physical product, the funds are then released. So you have this deadlock of trust, and everyone has to fulfill their part of the bargain, or no parts of the bargain is fulfilled. And in case the recipient never confirms that he actually got the product, then the funds actually go all the way back to the donor. There's no charity platform or organization in between taking care of the money and potentially running away with it. So you have this completely trustless design, at least in theory, because there's no guarantee that the producer of the or the merchant and the one receiving the product doesn't know each other also well. So there's also, of course, an element of transparency needed, and that's exactly what distributed ledgers provide as well. So not only do we have a solution to the trust problem, we also have transparency. And in the future, one of the future improvements to the platform will be the possibility for a merchant to go through the KYC check and say, okay, I'm this guy, and we will add information about which product, which receiver or recipient previously received. So you would be able to spot with your own eyes and by the use of our platform, be able to spot obvious abuse. Of course, you can't really prevent it entirely, but at least if I pay $10 worth of chicken food, for instance, then at least I know those $10 will end up in a place that probably needs it anyway, and those $10 will be spent from the merchant going to the hairdressers or getting his car fixed. Then those money will actually stay in circulation in the local community or the local area. So right now we're struggling finding merchants, and it has to do with the situation in Venezuela. I could really talk for hours on how cryptocurrencies aren't the solution to anything in Venezuela. I know it's a very hot topic for crypto platforms, but the problem is political. You can't solve a political problem with a digital currency, but you can ease some of the consequences of the problems they're going through. And that's what we aim to do. We don't aim to solve their problems in any way. We simply aim to make life a bit easier on those being caught in the middle of all that. So I think it's important to we kind of struggle also because there has been a lot of initiatives from all sorts of cryptocurrency projects in Venezuela, and it's not all of them have been equally good. Some of it has even turned out to be scams. So you have
Yeah.
people already lying down, and you move over and kick them, and of course they are a bit doubtful whether this initiative will actually work, and they no, we'll just stay with taking cash. That we know that actually works. So yeah, it's a bit uphill, but we are getting slowly but steadily. Are we getting a bit of traction with the
But
project
like,
in Venezuela?
yeah, and that's fantastic project, and we don't have time to really get into it today. But
No.
this also echoes a problem that we hear in other blockchains and other crypto related projects as well. And that's onboarding.
Yeah.
Because really the onboarding of the merchants is a challenge, and it's a challenge for all kinds of different currencies. In Bitcoin, it's a challenge for Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the oh, sorry, that's my dog. And sorry, it's the main problem is of onboarding is that the use cases being presented to these that are a bit reluctant to be
Yeah,
onboarded is
sure.
actually highly irrelevant. They don't have any problems with trust. They don't solve an actual problem that doesn't already have an even better or easier or more beautiful solution.
Sure.
So it's the particularly the trust issue when there's no need to eliminate trust. I mean, I go and shop in a supermarket every day, and I generally trust that I get the groceries I pay for. I don't
Mhm.
have a trust problem. So, and we have contactless Visa cards, and I just flash that, and yeah, I know the bank can track and
Yeah.
follow everything I do, of course. But generally, I trust they won't misuse it, and so far they haven't. I know it's a bad excuse because yes, sometimes you have all these accidents where data is leaked and stuff like that. But still, I generally don't have a problem with trust when I shop at a supermarket.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really hard to find people who actually believe that onboarding a supermarket or allowing me to pay with some sort of cryptocurrency is going to be super much easier or better or cheaper for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main issues. We don't see actual solutions to real problems. They're theoretical problems, but they have all sorts of other solutions to that as well.
Mhm.
And right now we are at such an early stage in distributed ledger technology that the solutions we can offer aren't. We have to admit they aren't always as effective as the existing solutions.
That's true.
Yeah.
The
That,
existing
it,
solutions have been tweaked for years,
mhm.
Exactly.
so
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. But
Exactly.
that being said,
Hmm.
there is the not the killer app, but there's the killer use case scenario. That
Yeah.
was probably will probably be the flagship use case scenario that people haven't seen yet,
Hmm.
but it will be there.
sooner
I
or
remember
later,
years
yes.
ago.
Before we
It,
are wrapping it up, because
yep.
this was
Yeah. Yeah.
initially
Yeah.
planned.
This is.
This was initially
It,
planned. Well, Casper, I know you. So the
yeah.
initial plan was doing this for 1 hour.
Yeah.
But we gave it some time, because
Yeah.
we have been talking
Yeah. Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
forth, and we know that you are quite enthusiastic and
To
um,
say the least.
yeah, to say the least,
Yeah.
about some stuff. So we thought about, yeah, not putting any wall of time that we need to hold because most likely it won't hold. Um,
Mhm.
but before wrapping it up completely, there were still some audience questions, and I would really like to just take them into account and
Mhm.
and give them some answers. I think with Shivan Yot,
Yeah.
there was the one thing why some people prefer using miners as gatekeepers than using multiple witnesses as some transaction in brackets data holders. I don't totally understand
Um,
that question, but maybe you do, Punctuate.
why it is that some people prefer
Yeah.
blockchains that has miners or these gatekeepers, block producers in any way. It doesn't really matter how the next block producer is chosen, how random it is. Why people prefer that? Uh, in I think in areas where you don't have a trust issue, where you would trust, regardless of who is going to produce the next block, um, where if you trust that everyone will include your transaction, then it might be, um, if not exactly better, but it wouldn't be a problem really. And I think that the wear of time plays an important part as well. We saw the first blockchain being invented in 2008. That's 11 years ago, 11 years ago now. The first DAC was introduced around 2015, 16, thereabout. So the test of time, so to speak, it's been proven that blockchains work as long as the block producers don't collude, and I think it's difficult really to answer. It's like you have room for a vast amount of different car producers. Um, they're basically just four wheels and an engine, but there's still room for a lot of different models and genres, so to speak. So I think there's a use for all kind of projects out there.
Yeah, more or less. I agree. There is some benefits to that as well, but some downsides to this technology as well. So, like, if we think on Bitcoin, like the heavy consumption of electricity that in the end these mining efforts is summing up to. So that's totally to be taken into
Yeah,
account.
but I mean, a lot of people always talk about the energy consumption as a huge problem, but actually that's also what generates the value,
Yes, yes,
so to speak, of,
yeah.
of Bitcoin.
That's totally right.
So, so it's difficult. You can't just focus single-sidedly on the energy consumption of
No, no,
Bitcoin.
that's totally
I think
right.
it's a
If you
problem.
the energy consumption makes it pricey to produce.
Exactly.
And if it's
Exactly.
something, if it's pricey or if it's taking long or if it's hard to do something, then it automatically has a value
Hmm.
because you
Exactly.
need to pay something for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
We should probably wrap this up.
yeah, totally.
We were-
Before we are getting into talking
I,
about I don't know
I
what.
could easily go on for
Yeah,
hours.
but the good thing is, this will not be the only episode we ever did of the Obyte Community Radio Show. So,
Exactly.
This is the tip of
so
the iceberg.
yes, it's only the tip of the iceberg. It's the first episode, and it started off a bit on the wrong foot, but I think we got it going cool. In the end, once Bucky turned on his microphone on Discord, I think it was all set. Uh,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
so every technological issue solved,
Mhm.
and I would really like to thank Casper specifically or especially because he's always that nice guy that explains things 3 times, and even then Bucky and me most likely haven't got it, but you all out there,
Yes,
you all out there have got it after the first time. So
that's
uh,
that's good.
that's totally
Yeah.
cool. Thank you for being that nice to us and for wrapping up the community.
Now,
Um,
Jan,
Thanks
Jan,
to
before we actually finish up, I have to ask you because I don't know if you're seeing the chats and things, but we have a great piece of music here that I'd love to hear. We have a great theme song
oh yes,
that I don't know if we played at the beginning.
I did. The bad thing is, and
Oh,
now
did you?
I need
Oh.
to go into a bit of the technical details. By the way, I'm holding up a duct tape. This is basically what holds this show together. This one. um, I just found it. It's a sign, you know.
Yeah.
I played it in the beginning, but the bad
Okay,
thing
good.
is you two cannot hear it. It's just audible on the stream, and
Oh.
I think in Discord as well, maybe. But for sure, it's audible on the stream. So
Cool.
all YouTube listeners and all future YouTube listeners and the recording listeners that we might
Yes.
have,
I'll edit it into the recording. Yeah.
they will be able to hear it, and it will be our outro song as well. It will not only be our intro song, it will be our outro song as well. And it's also done by the most famous, fantastic Mr. Caspar Niebe himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not with duct tape. It sounds much better than just
Fantastic.
hold together by duct tape. So
Yeah.
we're going to play it as an outro song to that show as well. So I think that's going to wrap it up nicely, Bucky. Do you want to
Yeah.
present when are we going to do the next show?
Well, I'm not. The next show. Well, you know what? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. The plan is that the next show is going to be 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
2 weeks from now, same time, which would be 8 p.m. UTC.
Mhm.
So that will be next Thursday.
8 p.m.
Not
UTC means that's, for instance, 10 p.m. Central European time, the time zone where.
Summertime.
Yes,
I was
summertime.
told.
Thanks a lot
Yeah.
for being correct, because that's true. It's
Yeah.
10 p.m. summertime, Middle European time. This is the time zone where Casper and I am in, and it
Yes.
is this half-hour thing time zone, whatever you are in, Andrew.
Yes. Yeah, I live on an island, and we have our own little time zones. A half hour out.
Yes.
So-
So and it's so please think on it. If time zoning can be a pain in the ass, If you're working with people all over the planet, you already know. And if not, and if you only want to listen to that radio show, please get your time zone correct, because sometimes 8 p.m. doesn't mean 8 p.m. because you need to see 8 p.m. UTC is the time you want to be here, which could be 4 o'clock in the morning for you if you're living on the other side of the world, basically. So time zoning is difficult. Take a look at it. And in 2 weeks from now, we are going to see the second episode of the Obyte Community Radio Show. And I promise, and I do this really, I cross fingers live on video. So obviously, I'm not riding with blood, but I'm crossing fingers that we are going to have a more technically adept setup next time.
Hopefully, yeah.
But
We'll
let's
get it
see.
sorted.
You didn't know how long we took and what measures it took us to get Casper's video signal. Bucky danced around the table. I have drawn some pentagrams just to just to make this work. And in the end, it did. But you don't want to know what we have really put into, what effort we put into getting that video signal out of Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Casper. Thanks a lot, Bucky. Thanks a lot to the
Thank you,
audience, to all the YouTube audience and the Discord audience. It was great having you, and you were really, really chatty and asking questions, and the best audience you could ever ask for. Thanks a lot, and see you in 2 weeks for the second episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.